Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to consider whether there is any serious influence involved in the current pressure on Northern Ireland from Brexit that can actually rally both sides around a common solution. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So when it comes to the implementation of Brexit in Northern Ireland, Boris Johnson has created a UK against EU narrative that will inevitably tear at the divisions that the Good Friday Agreement kept in check for over 20 years. We also have two new entrants into the Northern Ireland Protocol arena. President of the United States, Joe Biden, has the power and influence to involve himself very effectively in the situation. But he will be mistrusted by hardline unionists. Then we also have Edwin Poots, the new leader of the DUP. The DUP being the party that never signed up to the Good Friday Agreement and supported Brexit because they thought it would create a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland that would weld the province to Britain and create a chasm between the rest of Ireland and itself. Naturally, this did not occur. Although we've got some right nutters in charge of this country, not enough to do that. More than that, it was not credible to suppose that it could ever be allowed to happen. But then Poots believes that the earth is a few thousand years old, so a firm grounding in reality is not really his forte. Poots has made it his mission to completely destroy the Northern Ireland Protocol. Biden has made it his mission to see the protocol honoured. So what can each do? Well, as has been pointed out, the Northern Ireland Protocol was an international treaty agreed between the UK government and the EU Commission. Sure, it's a disgrace that such a huge constitutional change should not have required the blessing of devolved administrations around the UK, but it didn't. The Northern Ireland Assembly had no say whatsoever in the agreement, and just as they were not required to ratify the agreement, have no power to change or abolish it. Not that there isn't anything the DUP can do to frustrate the process. Oh, there is. The checks necessary to comply with the protocol, for example, need staff in Northern Ireland, inspectors. And before Poots became leader of the DUP, he was their agriculture minister and had already halted the recruitment of port inspectors. Now, inspectors means one of two things. One, delays to trade between Britain and Northern Ireland become impossible to manage. Or second, you abandon the checks altogether. And it was a nihilistic move to make it realistically impossible to carry out the checks. And he thought, therefore, so you can't go ahead with the protocol then, because I'm going to deny you the staff to do it. And he will continue to pursue this strategy. Now, next year, there will be elections in Northern Ireland. And although you don't want to say too much this far out, certainly current polling, and it's considered this way anyway, it's entirely possible that Sinn Féin would be the big winners then, and that would change everything. And it is very likely that it would be full steam ahead with Stormont doing their parts to implement the protocol. But that is a year away. Ordinarily, you would just say, well, it's going to happen for a year, wait a year, let it simmer for a year, see what happens. Because politics often plays out over a long time. We say things like 24 hours is a long time in politics, but very often things proceed quite slowly as well. A year can come and go. I mean, people voted to leave the EU in mid-2016, but we only actually did leave in 2020. And we weren't even ready then. But the current escalation in tensions risks continuing. See, we can't just pretend that things would just bumble along as they are for another year, and then we'll look at the elections, and then worry about how the delicate balance in Northern Ireland would be upset yet again with a Republican win in the elections. Now, considering this from the unionist point of view, they want Northern Ireland to remain part of the UK. They are aware that about half the population wants to reunify. I mean, this is what creates the threat for both sides, the perceived threat for both sides, if they perceive the other side to be in an ascendancy. Because they know that it's roughly split in half, this opinion. And it's a binary issue as well. It's an absolutely binary issue. And opinion is split pretty close. Then Brexit reared its head. Wow, a way to create a barrier between Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland to counter the Good Friday Agreement that we didn't like in the first place. This is what the DUP and other hardliners thought. Then it turned out differently. Now there is all the freedom of movement around Ireland that some unionists don't really approve of. they're not necessarily against, but they don't particularly approve of it. But now there are some restrictions between Britain and Northern Ireland. Well, this is all going a bit wrong. And as if the principle weren't bad enough, the actual implementation is going very badly. Yes, it's going worse than it needs to because of the actions of these hardline unionists. They've resisted it. Ironically, this resistance means that the practical implementation stays bad for longer. It's impossible to look at the situation in Northern Ireland and have any serious belief that Ireland will not reunify at some point, possibly in the next generation. Then you have a US president who identifies very strongly as Irish, much more so than the typically Irish-friendly presidents, but at least you had majority control over Stormont. Now, imagine this is changed. You have a Republican First Minister, or not just any Republican. You have a Sinn Féin First Minister. This will be as provocative to hardline unionists as it is for Republicans to have a DUP First Minister. The direction of travel for Northern Ireland will be increasingly towards reunification. This will lead to more extreme behaviour. I talked yesterday, or the day before it may have been, about how a unionist paramilitary was allowed to attend a parliamentary committee and say that violence would be used if these people felt there was no alternative tool for achieving their aims. Now, what's needed, and it might sound obvious to say it, but not enough are, is someone who can identify a way to calm the panic amongst hardline unionists without just passing that panic on to Republicans who would behave in the same way under the reverse circumstances at any rate. And you know, that we're talking about the return of unionist violence is only because hardline Republicans are on course for their aims politically and unionists are not. What's needed is a unifying narrative, an assuring voice. Instead, we have Boris Johnson, who is happy to stoke tensions to avoid accepting the consequence of his deliberate actions. We have Edwin Poots, who thinks nothing of setting fire to his house if it refuses to reflect his reality. President Biden, who, although is at least an experienced diplomat, is nonetheless going to be very much in a position that is seen as on one side rather than the other, not an obvious bridge. I mean, you would certainly argue that we would not be in this mess were it not for extremists being in so many influential positions here. But I just struggle to understand how any real progress is going to be made with purveyors of divisive politics like Boris Johnson and Edwin Poots in position still. I get that Johnson's government might well pull back from the brink again, you know, like they did late last autumn, and hail another agreement as a great victory for his combative style. I get that that may well be his plan, to kick up a fuss, stoke tensions, get some concession from the EU and then calm it all down again. But the thing is, the rest won't do that. It's not like Boris Johnson has his hand on the pressure valve of Northern Irish tensions. He can stoke the fire, he's got the capacity to stoke the fire, but he can't actually ease the pressure. Will there be a breakthrough at or before the meeting of the G7 in a few weeks? If not, will it all kick off a few weeks later when the marches begin? Does Johnson even care? Worse still, does he think it would be a useful distraction from his mounting failures and therefore advantageous? I'll have to see, I suppose. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.